G'day subscribers, today we're going to jive talk about steering wheels, rear axles, and we might even have time to talk about a sun visor. You're Jules Knight on Jive Talking Garage. Okay, so what we've been doing this week is we've been helping a new member. And I've got to say he's probably made more progress in 3 weeks with this terrific straight FJ, pretty much rust-free ute than I've made in mine. So, really big hats off to Tim there. I've got to tell you, he's doing a super job with it. Look, one of the issues we've had running through the Jive Talking Garage this week is the removal of the steering wheel. Now, let's just say if you go to Repco and buy one of these, it's not quite going to help you unless you can do some funky stuff, and I'll show you the funky stuff in a minute. But if you go to the good old standard workshop manual on page 220 on section 9-6 steering gear, there is tool 9A1. So I'll just show it to you. Now this little tool here tells you what you need to do to pull off the steering wheel. So, you have a cog in the middle of the Bakelite steering wheel. So it's a metal disc, metal either side where the arms are, a metal ring, and then they use Bakelite to actually form the steering wheel. So when I take mine off, I'll show you mine. But anyway, look, I just wanted to take you through the motions because it's certainly a case in point, and it's reminiscent during the week of what we've been trying to do. So the book tells you to use a puller. Well, the pullers these days for those cars that are available, these pullers that are available, aren't going to do the job as they come in the packet. You're probably going to have to get a bolt and make it into a hook to try and do it, and slide it along and so on. Really difficult job. What I did was, and I'm looking for some other stuff that I can talk about as well, but that's fine, forget about it. When I had my ute, I put the nice big fat Bridgestone ER78 S14s on it, and I took it into fulcrum suspension, and Mr. Tronk was going to do a wheel alignment for me, and he said, listen, Julesy, by the time we're finished with it, the steering wheel's going to be a little bit skew-riff because we're going to adjust the front wheels and the toe in and so on. So I said, okay, what do you need to do? He said, oh, just stand by, I got this. So what he did was he got the trusty spanner out. He took my horn button off, and then he got this on the nut that goes on top of the steering shaft, and he undid that, and then he took the horn contact off and he put the nut on. Now I'm going to show you two methods. Now what he did, and they both involve the same theory behind it. So what they did at the time was Russell sat in my car. He had his knees up against the arms of the steering wheel, so he was putting upward pressure on the steering wheel, and he got the adjustable spanner and he put the nut back on it, on the steering shaft, to give a better twofold, a bigger target protection or whatever. That was the first thing. And the second thing was to protect the thread at the top of the steering shaft. So what he did then was, now I don't remember whether it was a rubber mallet or a hammer, but he's got his knees up under the steering wheel. He's backed the nut all the way to the top of the steering shaft, so he's pushing up this way, and he's gone boom, and hit the top of the steering shaft in one go, and that steering wheel has just popped straight off. They've done the wheel alignment, got the wheels perfectly straight, and then he's put the steering wheel back on perfectly straight. Excuse me. So that's what he did. That was 1986. So I was talking to him during the week, and he said, Jules, if you don't have a steering wheel puller, you need one of these. Now, this is Russell's. This isn't mine. This is Russell's. And it's called a brass drift. And it's literally a cylindrical piece of brass. It's been knurled on one end. And I'm told that this is for the type of thing such as the knock-on wheels of an E-type Jag that have all the spokes and so on. But what it is you would use it on the 48 or the FJ top of the steering shaft, exactly like I just mentioned, taking the horn button off, taking the horn contact off, putting the nut back on, just to so that the face of it is level with the top of the steering shaft. He said, okay, so then what you do is you're using this like a form of a chisel. Now this brass is more malleable than what steel is. So what the purpose of it is to damage this and not your steering shaft. So what he has said to me is, sure, you do the same thing, knees up underneath the steering wheel, you put the brass drift. What's called a drift, I don't know, because the thing would never drift, it would sink. But anyway, put that aside. Brass drift on there, and it's a case of you're banging the brass drift. So this is the thing that gets damaged, not your steering shaft. So in this case, what this is doing then is it is transferring the vibration, which is what you want. And that is to break the join of the internal cog that's sitting inside the steering wheel, the gear, with the spline of the steering shaft. Now, putting that aside, now there was a show on Seven Mate some time ago, the Canadian Guild of Restorers, words to that effect, and they have an episode, and I've seen it on YouTube as well, and they talk about the different methods, and they use about 5 of them. They'll have an instructor show you the different methods of actually getting corroded contacts, fasteners, nuts and bolts apart. And these included, the WD-40 type of thing. Or I learned this week about the penetrine. Apparently this is really good stuff. Penetrine. Russell uses it when he restores his Victor mowers, and whenever he's got something that's giving him a hard time, he puts it on there, and 2 days later, she's a beauty. So they'll talk about those type of penetrating oils, but they also talk about heat, and sometimes that's your last resort. You've got to have heat. But they also mention about freezing, because what you're trying to do is the nut needs to be expanded because you want to break the seal that the nut has on the thread, or the bolt has to be shrunk so that it's the thread gets away from the nut, because it's the corrosion in between the thread of the nut and the thread of the bolt that's actually holding it together and not allowing you to undo it. So that's the problem there. But if I can recommend that show to you, it would be on YouTube from the Guild of Canadian Restorers. Just use those words. I'm sure you'll see it in the search. It's really good, and they'll give you different techniques to actually separate fasteners. So that's good. Now, one of the other tips that I had given subscribers probably about 12 months ago, I suppose, and I didn't get one out, but I've got a couple now to be able to have and hold. Now, I think every owner needs to have one of these wrapped in a towel and put underneath your seat. Now, as far as FJ is concerned, that's an FJ rear axle. They have a spline that end. See the spline? Now that locks into the gears of the differential. Both sides. They're equal axles, left and right, so it doesn't matter. They are, FJ and FX are different. But anyway, I'm not going to go into the FX because I don't talk FX. And you'll see, this comes with a bearing. It's not a bad one, but it pushes on here. So you need a press to put it on. And it has a keyway there. See the keyway there? Let me just try and get it right for you. Okay, there's the keyway. Excuse me. So once that is inserted, you have a square piece of steel that comes standard with your Holden. Excuse me, that's our shop dog, Ruby. And she's trying to get to see Dad. So you put the axle in, the brakes are all around it and all that sort of thing. The drum slips over that. Then you match up the keyway of the axle with the keyway of the drum, and then you push the key in there, and that's what locks it into place. Now, I've broken front and rear axle, so rear axle and front stub axle, and I've cracked it here and broken it. And once it's broken, you're buggered. You've just got to get help, and then get that off, and then get this part out. So it's a really, really hard job. Everyone should have one. But if you have this one and you have it wrapped in a towel or whatever, you're also going to need a wheel puller. So this is a drum puller for the rear brake drums. So if you're going to wrap one of those up in a towel, you're going to have to take that with you, because there's no point, if you need to get to an axle, to change an axle, going to somewhere or other. Excuse me, I've got the coughs tonight. Then if you have one, you need the other, but that's fine. So we've talked about the penetrine, we've talked about the WD-40. Now, just taking a moment to go back to the steering wheel. Once I get my steering wheel off, I am going to give it a little bit of a hit with some grease just on the splines on the top of the steering shaft, because it's going to be hard. I already know it's going to be hard. I was just lucky because Russell did that one for me at Fulcrum Suspension, so I got out of it easy. Whereas what I want to do is make it easy for myself to get it on and off when I need to, because I'm going to have to strip it and all that sort of stuff. And you'll need to fill, you don't fill it with bog. If there's any cracks in the wheel, it'll be a particular epoxy. But if you use a little bit of lubricant on it, sorry, just giving the doggy a pat so she knows everything's fine. She has a little bit, she's hard of hearing. So a bit of lithium grease, that will be perfect. Now, the last thing that I wanted to talk about, well, I've got two things. And I want to try and make the episodes a little bit shorter than it has been. But if we go to the shop manual and we go to page 289, it's good for a Windsor motor, 289, electrical system 1255. Now, if you park your car 25 feet away from a wall, whether it be your house, side of your house, the wall, the shopping centre, whatever, there is a diagram on here in the Holden manual about how to adjust your headlights. Now, grab your workshop manual, and this tells you what you need to do as far as getting a piece of chalk and writing it on the wall, and where to shine your lights and where the middle of your car is and all that sort of thing. But this is really good because you can adjust your headlight so that you're using this diagram to get all your beams right as far as what the measurements are and all that sort of thing. And Holden are making it easy for you because they're showing you a how-to. Because don't forget, This book is just a book of procedures. And I know I'm using the workshop copy, and Basil gave this to the apprentice, and I'm just using his copy because mine's wrapped in plastic and whatever else. But these are worth their weight in gold. If you are, if you're a new owner, do yourself a favor, get one of these. And it doesn't matter what state it's in, because what matters is what's in it. The stuff in here, it is just a book of procedures. It tells you either how to undo something and then how to do it up, which is the reverse procedure. So from that perspective, it's pretty good. Do yourself a favor, get one of those. Now, last but not least, I think we've done an episode on sun visors. Now, I've got a deluxe sun visor on my FJ. We've seen episodes where they're a cooler ride or a sundowner. Excuse me. NASCO had a standard. So NASCO had a standard or a deluxe. It's got the advertising for that. That's all perfect. And there was a few other ones you get, some with chrome trim and stuff like that. But in Queensland, there was a really nice two-tone green car, NAV 002. Was the registration. The late Ron Goodhue, our good friend, and he bought this car. I think it might have been Toowoomba, actually. It was a 1956 two-tone green, button trim, beautiful car. Won the Nationals in Wellington in 1982. Was a great car. I got to drive it once. He asked me if I could drop it home for him from the other side of town. Closest thing I've ever driven to a brand new Holden FJ that was unrestored. All they really did was give it a paint job and a bit of titivation on it. It looked magnificent. But what Ron had on that car is one of these. Now I'm going to show you half of it. Now I really love this type of sun visor. Now I loaned this out 35 years ago, and I got it back last month. So I think I have to use this as a bit of a mold, and it is Skyline brand, and I just think it is the cat's whiskers. I loved it when I saw it, and I forget how much I paid at the swap meet for it, but subscribers will know if there's an accessory going around, I pretty much am all over it like a dose of salts. But look, having said that, that's the type of thing that you could get. You obviously need the pair, and unfortunately for me, yeah, that's it. So what I want to do is have that repaired with some plastic welding, and I want to check the distance of the FJ to make sure that it is suitable for an FJ, or whether I actually need to have these recreated with a bit more length on them, and then I can cut them to the precise length that I need. Because remember, as a restorer, it's a matter of getting what you have and then turning it into what you need. That's the art of restoration. So few things in there for you tonight. We've talked about steering wheel and procedures to getting that on and off. We've talked about the axle and the mythical brass drift. We've talked about where to find the adjustment for your headlights, and we've also talked about the Perspex sun visor. So I hope there was a little bit in there. We'll be coming to you soon with some discussion on the color specifications. We've been doing a little bit of work there, and also getting a bit of help there as well, which has been terrific. So really, really happy about that. And a lot of subscribers have sent pictures in, and also some things to consider where it's been thought, oh, this engine component was black for instance. And I've had two subscribers say to me, Jules, our dad had a problem with his Holden and the fan went through the radiator and the replacement spare part that we got for the car that was fitted at the dealers or wherever it was, it was all black rather than engine grey. I'm thinking, and their message to me was it was engine grey, and when they've had to swap it out to fix it up, it was made black because that was the spare part colour. And in talking to Barry during the week, he made a really good point of, vendors, when they were manufacturing things, they needed to paint things a colour to protect them, stop them rusting, because you can't excuse me, you can't send off a part that's bare metal. So makes a good point there. But anyway, folks, Jive Talking Garage, drop by our Facebook page and see all the quirky little things that we put up there. Fundamentally, the heart of it's Holden, but we're trilingual. We talk Ford and Chrysler Mopar as well. Not a real lot, but we're not that ignorant to believe that there's only one thing out there. We love the Holden, and we certainly do heaps of Holden stuff there. So drop by Jive Talking Garage on Facebook, see what we're doing. Have a look at our other videos on YouTube so you can share, like, and subscribe. But more importantly, enjoy your Holden.